Advertising Council Australia would like to begin by acknowledging and paying our respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast today. ACA would also like to acknowledge their culture of storytelling through art, dance and music, and we pay respect to the elders past, present and future on other lands throughout all communities who might be participating today.
As an extension of that, I would like to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people, the traditional owners of the land on which I work and live, and pay my respect to their elders, past, present and emerging. Good afternoon all, my name is Smilka and I will be your host for this session. I have to say I'm very excited to have the opportunity to speak with Andy today. He is, after all, one of the top brand strategists in the UK for about 4 years now. He's won a whopping, get ready for this, 24 IPA Effectiveness Awards. His agency, Lucky Generals, has been shortlisted for Agency of the Year 6 out of the 7 years running. And to top it all off, he's also been listed as one of the top 5 creative people in the world of advertising by Business Insider. So, you know, inside my head, I'm going WTF, but obviously I'm not going to verbalize that. This is a PG show in a PG time slot. I read these stats, and for me, that essentially painted a picture of someone with a posh accent, a massive ego, and as you're soon going to see, that's one area where Andy disappoints, and consistently. Andy has studied law at Edinburgh University. He's the founder of one of the UK's most successful creative agencies, and he's now the author of Go Like Yourself, a great book for a great cause. All royalties go to Commercial Break, which is an organisation based in the UK that helps working class talent break into the creative industries. And so far, not only have the book sales ticked over £10,000 for Commercial Break, but also talks like this have also led to about £20,000 in donations in kind and a £30,000 apprenticeship. Andy, it sounds like you need to help fund one of these here in Oz too. Please welcome Andy. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Now, can I, there you go. I'm here. Thank you so much. That's such a lovely introduction. I should get you to do all my introductions basically before every presentation ever.
No worries. I just want to mention something. When we spoke a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned to me that whilst you were doing one of these talks, you tore the retina in your eye, which sounds incredibly painful. And I'm assuming it's because you do this in a pretty active way.
Well, do you know, I think it's more just because I'm getting old. I think it's old age, but it was a terrible advertisement for someone who's doing a talk about luck, because it's like, why would you believe anything this guy says when he's, you know, like just ripped his retina and is now going to have to wear an eye patch? So thankfully, I'm not doing that. I'm a bit blind still, but I'm sort of recovered.
Okay, awesome. I just want to let everyone know on the call that there's going to be a bit of participation. So there'll be a point where we're going to ask you to potentially put your hand up. So you guys have like your little toolbar down the bottom, and that's got a hand. So click that. And then that way we'll probably also get you to get on camera, some of you. And Andy may ask you to do some things on camera, which will be fun as well. There's a chat functionality. I think some of you have already discovered it and said hi to a bunch of us. So we'll use that as well. And finally, there's going to be a bit of time for Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions that you're already bursting to ask, please, you can put them in at any point in time. You can go now. You may think of some as you go. So I know that I have a whole ton of my own. So we won't run out of things to say, I guess. And then the final housekeeping point before we kick off is that the session is being recorded, and it's going to be posted up on the Advertising Council's website for those who weren't able to join us today. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you Andy Nairn.
Thank you very much. Right. Okay. Well, yeah, thanks very much for having me along, and especially for supporting this book, which is, as Smilka said, all the royalties go to this very good cause. And if it's all right by you, I thought I'd say a little bit about what it's about and why I wrote it, but mostly really more practical stuff about how we can all improve our luck, because I sort of figure that we could probably all do with a bit of luck right now, right? So I'll do the easy bit first. Which is the book. It's about sort of the role of luck in building a brand. basically. So it's not about other sorts of luck. If anyone sort of thought they were going to be tuning in to see a presentation about improving the luck in your love life, and then was really disappointed to see this old guy come on who's never been on a date for so many years, and was sorely disappointed. This is your chance to sort of like sneak off now, off camera. Nobody needs to talk about this again. So it's about creativity, and it's not even really about superstitious stuff. So ever since I wrote this book, people have been giving me like crap, basically, like this, and other sort of trinkets. And if I go home, I've got like rabbit's feet coming out of every cupboard. But it's not really about that sort of stuff. I keep telling people, because actually there's a lot of science behind this, because really luck is about chance and probability apart from anything else. So, and I'll hopefully be able to talk about some of the science behind it in a second. So it's about building a brand, and there's a bunch of reasons I wrote it. I found myself thinking a lot about luck over the last couple of years. I mean, obviously I've got an agency called Lucky General, so there's some, I guess, some self-interest there, but I sort of wrote the book almost despite having an agency with the word luck in its name, rather than because of it, because I just realized I don't know anything about this subject, and it seems to be quite a big force in the world right now. I bet probably like lots of you, I've spent the last couple of years thinking about how unlucky I am, and being a bit down in the dumps, and feeling, this pandemic is a nightmare, and what have we done to deserve it? So I've thought a lot about bad luck, but then also I've thought a lot about good luck. Because a lot of the other big issues of the last couple of years have sort of revolved around this idea of privilege. And someone like me, I'm like your classic old, white, straight, able-bodied, apart from the retina, bloke. And so I've sort of thought a lot about how lucky I am, frankly, just because of my demographics. It's what Warren Buffett calls winning the ovarian lottery, which I think is a really nice phrase. Just by virtue of my demographics, I've been sort of lucky. So I found myself thinking a lot about luck, a bit embarrassed that I didn't know anything about it, despite it being in my company's name. And then I realized that that's all right, because nobody thinks about luck or talks about luck in the West. It's like we're all completely ignorant about it. Like, I bet none of you applied for your jobs by saying, yeah, I'm just really jammy, I'm really lucky. You don't start off your presentations or your CAN, awards entries, videos by saying, well, this was a bit of a fluke. So we don't like to talk about luck. In fact, if anything, it's a bit of an insult, isn't it? If I say that you're lucky, it sort of sounds like I'm being really rude, because it kind of sounds like I'm saying that you're not hardworking or talented. And actually, I think you can be all of those things, but we sort of make it sound as if they're the opposites. So I got into this idea of luck. I sort of came up with the punny title first, and I'm feeling quite pleased with myself about that, until I had to tell my mum. So my mum is in her 80s, and she's never cared about any of those awards that Smilka kindly mentioned before, but she did like the idea of telling her friends about my son, the author. So she kept on asking me, what's this book called? What's it going to be called, Pet? And I'm ashamed to say that for a man who spends, his whole professional life telling people, to be creative and brave and courageous, I completely chickened out, because also she's a bit deaf. And I sort of thought, if I shout down the phone to my mum, go luck yourself, mum, it would go horribly wrong and come out the wrong way. So I sort of threw my publisher under the bus and basically blamed them. I said it would be their choice what the title was. But anyway, I got into this subject of luck, and I realized there's two reasons. I'm just a tiny little bit of history here to set up why this is such a taboo, because I think it is important. The first reason is it's cultural. So this is very much like a Western hang-up. So any of you who have worked in other parts of the world or in other cultures, or maybe have family members from other cultures, you will know that huge swathes of the world, in particular in Asia, people are much more likely to talk about luck. But in the West, we look down on it because we think it's a bit sort of unscientific and a bit superstitious. And the reason for that, the second reason, is a historical one. So even in the West, we were completely happy talking about luck until the Victorian times. And the Victorians had this belief that there was no such thing as luck. And if you're rich and if you're successful, that meant that you had worked really hard and God had smiled upon your endeavors. Whereas if you were poor, you just hadn't tried hard enough and you should work harder, you sort of, you oik. And that sense pervades Western business culture to this day, and I feel is like really unhelpful, because it's the elevation of, you know, hard work above everything else. And this phrase that you hear time and time again, and which I discovered as I wrote this book, people kept saying to me, but yeah, there's no such thing as luck. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And I just don't think that's true. I mean, obviously we have to work hard. I bet everyone on this call is working harder than ever. And you have to be talented, like I say, but there'll be so many times, and we'll talk about them in a second, and you've probably experienced them, where actually hard work and slogging it away at your desk for another couple of hours is not what's going to give you the creative breakthrough. It's going to be doing something completely different. And that's where I think luck comes into it, and how we can all sort of increase our luck. So in the book, there are 40 different ways to improve your luck. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through all of them. That would be really unlucky for all of you. I'm going to talk about 4 broad themes, though, if that's okay. So the first one, and you might want to write these down now, actually, to help you keep track of where I'm going with all this. So number 1 is going to be appreciate what you've got. Number 2 is going to be look out for opportunities everywhere. Number 3 is turn misfortune into good fortune. And the last one is practice being lucky. So this first one, appreciate what you got. There's like loads of science about this, actually, about human beings, and that if we are that we're more likely to succeed if we take a little moment in our day to acknowledge the good things in our life, you know, to practice a bit of gratitude and appreciation. But I think the same applies to organizations too, and we don't do it often enough. And my sort of analogy is from a show called Antiques Roadshow, which I'm hoping sort of is vaguely familiar in Australia and beyond. But it's basically a show when people, you know, very nice people bring in priceless artifacts that they're doing really dumb things with. Like there was a lady recently, I'm gonna walk around here, little old lady who brought in a plate, and she'd been eating her fish and chips off this posh plate on a Friday night. And the expert said, "Oh my God, this is a Picasso designed plate, and it was worth £30,000. She'd been using it to get fish and chips off." Then there was somebody in Cornwall. Oh, look, lots of little fan club for Antiques Roadshow in the chat function. Somebody from Cornwall family were propping open a door in their garage with some old Star Wars stuff. And when the kids grew up, they thought, we'll chuck that out, but let's get it valued first. It was valued at £300,000, and they actually sold it. So sadly, not this. This cost me like £4 in a charity shop. So a bit disappointing. But yeah, there's sold for £300,000. And then the best one, I think, was this show now runs in America. Somebody was down and out, sleeping rough with their cat, and they wrapped the cat up in this old blanket. And somebody said, you get that looked at because it looks like a Navajo relic. And it was a Navajo relic, and he sold it for $1.5 million and turned his life around. So I love these stories. Yes, as people saying, how do I have these things? It's because people keep giving me all sorts of crap to do with luck. But we like these stories because they're sort of, we can have a bit of a laugh at people doing really dumb things with these really priceless artifacts. But like, we are guilty in our industry of doing far worse things with far greater sums of money. You know, often organizations are sitting on amazing assets that are worth tens or hundreds of millions of pounds, not just tens or thousands of dollars. And so, you know, that might be something like your brand history. Like a lot of brands, if they've got a history, they don't appreciate how lucky they are to have that backstory. And actually, if anything, they often run away from their history because they don't want to look old-fashioned. But sometimes, as we all know, going back to look at, you know, why the founders set this business up in the first place can be a really great way to sort of work out where you need to be going in future. So history, if you've got history, you're lucky. If you've got a provenance story, that can be really lucky. But again, a lot of companies are worried about provenance because they worry that if they talk about being from a particular place, it might make them feel, you know, parochial or just for those people, you know, and they forget that actually you can channel the spirit of a place and turn that into something that appeals to loads of different people. So if you come from a particular place, you're lucky. It can be data. You know, as we all know, loads of companies collect vast amounts of data these days. You know, they're sitting on gold mines, but they don't appreciate how lucky they are. You know, I love the work that Spotify do, where they've actually put the work front and center with Spotify Unwrapped, which I guess you're hopefully familiar with. But most companies just sit on the data, collect it at vast expense and don't do anything with it. Data is lucky. If you've got data, you're lucky. And so on and so forth. It can be things like if you've got your own media, and if you've got a packaging, or if you've got a shop window, wow, that's incredible media real estate, but you have to appreciate that that is an advertising space, not just a place to put all the crap about your product. Or it could be a brand character, a device, you know, sort of, you know, a little, you know, icon or something like that. And we work with a retailer, actually, from a little, tiny little retailer from Seattle, little corner shop from Seattle, these guys, who you probably know. And we had a brief to try and get people to have a more emotional relationship with Amazon. You know, because everyone respects them very much functionally, but perhaps we don't necessarily have an emotional relationship with them. And when we were sitting in the room discussing this, somebody pointed at their logo, which had been sitting in front of us the whole day, and it's called the Amazon Arrow. So it goes from A to Z. It's basically says that we sell everything from A to Z, and we deliver everything from A to Z. And they sort of said, well, yeah, if you look at it another way, there could be a smile. And if it's a smile, then it can be a singing box. And if we can have singing boxes, then we can deliver smiles, singing happily all around the world. And that's a really universal way to get people to have, you know, to present us in a more emotional fashion. I think that campaign ran in Australia. It's run all over the world for the last 5 years. But how much is that worth to Amazon? But all we were doing was taking something that was going past them millions of times a day on thousands of conveyor belts around the world, and warehouses, on everyone's jacket and on everyone's fleece, on every lorry, on every PowerPoint presentation. All we were doing is almost like resurfacing this thing that was already right under their noses. And I think a lot of our jobs is like that, I'm afraid. It's actually the equivalent of going up into the attic, having a bit of a rumble around, and then coming back down with something that's already there and maybe just not been appreciated for a few years, and blowing a bit of dust off it, and helping people see it in a new light. So start with the obvious. That's my top planning tip. There's almost always something hiding in plain sight that people just haven't appreciated strongly enough. So there's a whole bunch of lessons about that in the book. Second theme is about looking out for opportunities everywhere. And there's a nice experiment done here by a psychologist called Richard Wiseman, who asks people whether they're lucky or unlucky. And then he gets them to read a newspaper, and he gets them to count the photographs in a newspaper. What is amazing is that the people that self-define as being kind of lucky do this task in a couple of seconds, and the people who say that they're unlucky take many, many minutes. So a massive difference. And the reason is, on page 2 is a little advert, and it says, yeah, don't worry, there's 45 photographs in this newspaper. You can just stop counting now, tell the guy on the door, take your money, you can go home. And the point he makes out of it is that often when we say we're unlucky, all we really mean is that we've got our heads down, we're the sort of people that maybe are concentrating on the task that we've been given, like in this case, counting photographs. But that means that we miss out on a whole bunch of stuff in life that's not really quite on the brief that we've been given, but is interesting nonetheless. And maybe lucky people are better at spotting those kind of things on their peripheral vision. And he works with individuals to get them better at doing that. But again, I think the same applies to organizations. A lot of the time, especially at the moment when we're all working so hard, we're very inclined to think only of our own category or our market or our brand or even our department. We think in silos. If we're an ad agency, we think in terms of advertising, because that's the task that maybe we've been given to do, and then we work harder and harder and harder away at it, and sometimes the answer isn't as creative or interesting. And I think this is my point about, it's not just about hard work and slogging away. looking harder and harder through the newspaper for photographs. And sometimes you need to put the newspaper down, have a bit of a think about something else. And we all know that, if you go for a run or you walk around nature and you're maybe inspired by something in the natural world, or you watch some sport or listen to music, or read something about science, or go to your kids, show, or speak to, somebody from a completely different demographic or age group. All of these things are more likely probably to make that breakthrough than just sitting away at your desk doing the equivalent of counting photographs. Because that's where luck comes into it. You get serendipity is the lucky stumble, isn't it? Where you stumble over something, but actually you can deliberately make those accidents more likely to happen by making sure your life is full of other interests and stuff, not just work. Because it's good for you in your actual life, but it also actually will have a side effect in terms of making your thinking better when it comes to coming up with new ideas. So the second section is all about making sure your life is full of all sorts of interesting influences, being fascinated by everything in life. But part of that actually is about is having a diverse team. So, everyone obviously rightly talks about diversity from the point of view it's just the right thing to do. It's an ethical question, of course it is. But there's also just a basic creative fact that it will make you much more likely to have interesting and eclectic ideas. And I'm going to see if we can get this chat function to or the sort of hand raising to work. So I'm going to get you to do some drawing if you can, if you feel like doing a bit of drawing. Don't worry, it's nothing too sort of complicated. I'm going to ask you if you can spend a minute or two, literally just a minute, let's say, to draw an alien from outer space. Okay, so just imagine a planet far, far away and see if you can draw an alien that lives there. And I'm going to have a little look at some of them, hopefully, in a second, and see if it conforms to what usually happens in this experiment. Okay, so just take a few seconds if you've got a pen, a bit of paper. Right, this is the moment of truth now. You can see if anyone wants to put their hand up to share their amazing work of art. Who's feeling super artistic? Anyone gonna help out? Amazing. Oh, wow, that's incredible. That is a very unusual one. Liking that. Okay, anybody else? Anyone else able to put their hands up or tell us in the chat if okay. Oh, we can't turn the cameras on, right? So what do I need to do here? If you tell me, so Eloise, for instance, I think, okay, so you might gonna, if we can start to turn the cameras on of the people who've kindly put their hands up. Brilliant. Thank you, Blanche. Amazing. That's lovely. So maybe we can put Paul Alexander's camera on because he seems to be up for this as well. Let's have a little look. I can't see Paul's yet. Or if we can't do Paul, maybe can we put Eloise's on? Because I think she can. Amazing. Oh, that's fantastic. I love that one. Fantastic. Any others? So we've got Paul's, we've had Blanche's, we've had Smilka's. What about is Eloise there, or Ryan Stubner, maybe? Let's do this one last one. Let's have a look at Ryan's if we can. Oh, we've got Eloise's, I think. Okay, right, perfect. Fantastic. Okay, great. Well, thankfully what this does, even with those few there, it sort of confirms this experiment that there's a university in Texas have done this many, many times. No, this always happens. So what everyone pretty much always does is, in over 90% of the cases, they include some sort of sensory organs, something that resembles a little bit like, eyes or mouth or ears or, antennae or things like that. Pretty much everybody has some sort of limbs. So I think Smilka had like loads of limbs going on over there. Everyone has, arms or legs or things like that. And mostly they are symmetrical or vaguely symmetrical, and really sort of more or less, look quite like either earth animals or even like human beings as a human characteristic to them. And the reason for that is because and the sort of serious point they make out of it is that like human beings are rubbish at coming up with new ideas, especially when I put you under a bit of pressure like that to do it in 30 seconds. And so what we do is we go back to, the thing that's in our own experience. And in this case, it's a bit of a trick. It's a bit of like a closed experiment because we've all had the same experience of aliens. I mean, unless there's been a really weird thing sort of happening here. But mostly we've watched the same films, like wherever you are in the world, it's a culturally sort of neutral thing. So we've all grown up with the same experience of aliens. We have the same understanding of what they might look like and so on. And that's why we come up with the same ideas. And the serious point they make out of that is why, if you've got a very homogenous team, you're all just going to come up with the same ideas because you've all drawn on the same background. So another way of making sure that you're drawing on, ideas from everywhere is to just make sure you've got a really diverse team, not just for the ethical reasons, but because you're miles more likely to have that interesting collision of different backgrounds and experience and cultures. So that's the second theme. Third theme, I'm going to speed up a bit now. Turn misfortune into good fortune. There's a little character here I've got. I don't know if I'm going to cover his name up. I don't know if you can see this little guy. I don't know if anyone knows who this is or even what animal it is. It is a rabbit. It's a rabbit called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Here you go. And he was the first sort of big hit that Walt Disney had in 1928, and he made a load of money on it, and he was going to sign a deal to make another 25 movies with this guy in it. But when he was in New York, he had a bit of a disaster, and his partner ripped him off, took all the intellectual rights to this, and also took all of Walt Disney's people. So Walt Disney was like absolutely distraught. He was going to give up. And so he was on a train back to LA from New York, gutted, but it's a very long train journey, obviously. So he's sort of looking out the window, because obviously it's Walt Disney, he's bored and he's drawing and miserable, sketching. But so it's a very long train journey. By the time he gets out in LA, he'd come up with this guy, probably a bit better drawn than I've done him, because otherwise he would make as much money out of him. But the point is, he came up with Mickey Mouse, and then he would later look back on life and he would say, do you know what, the luckiest thing about Oswald the Lucky Rabbit was that somebody stole him. Otherwise I would have never come up with Mickey Mouse. And I like that story because I feel like in our business that happens a lot. I mean, hopefully not that people steal our ideas, but that things happen, don't they? Like our client might change their mind, or our creative director might blow something out, or research might kill something, or a pandemic might happen, or the budget gets cut. All these different things mean that we have to go again and deal with bad luck, and not just sort of half-heartedly come up with something half as good, but we have to forget the thing that we had before, get over that, and come up with something that's even better. And what I've noticed is that the best companies almost run towards that bad luck rather than just deal with it. They actually seek it out. It's the old Steve Jobs thing. He used to try and kill his own products because he believed that if I don't do it, somebody else will. And so when I think about some of my favorite work, it's got like a flaw in it. The great things like the Guinness strategy, which is, good things come to those who wait. Turning the worst thing about a pint of Guinness into the best thing about a pint of Guinness. Or it's about a taboo, like the body form work, Libresse, which is all about, not just sort of dancing around the edges of menstruation or women's bodies, but like running towards it and sing about it, literally make a song and dance about it. So a taboo can be lucky. Sometimes we've all probably worked on stuff where a budget cut has turned out to be lucky because it sort of forced us to think more creatively. Or a really tight deadline that we moan about at first turns out to be our savior because it sort of forces us to do something we wouldn't have otherwise done. So a lot of the time it can be even things like hatred or customer complaints or anger or, you know, death. There's so many great campaigns that start from something that feels like a terrible thing, but in the right hands, you can turn it into something that feels lucky and interesting and fertile. So the whole third section is all about that sort of stuff, bad stuff that you turn into good stuff. And then the final thing is practice being lucky. So sort of might sound like an oxymoron, but I don't know if any of you are into music. You know, if you play a musical instrument, obviously you do have to practice. But after a certain point, you become less good at your instrument. If you all you do is practice, you know, you can become a bit rigid, and you have to sort of leave yourself a bit of wiggle room to sort of improvise on the day, or try something new. Otherwise, you're just perfect, you know, technically perfect, but a bit boring in the way that you play. And you know, I love this phrase by the greatest record producer of all time, a guy called Quincy Jones, who's got it on his wall. He says, "Let the Lord walk through the room." You know, do all the hard work, do all the rigor. He's a very rigorous scientific way of putting music tracks together. But then he has 20% of the time, which he quantifies and ring fences and protects at the end of the process to say, "Let the Lord walk through the room." And it can be at the end of the process like that, or it can be at the beginning. So a lot of musicians deliberately throw things together to get themselves started when they're trying to write songs. Like David Bowie used to cut up a newspaper, throw it in the air, and then when the words landed, he'd have a pattern, like he might have found diamonds and dogs together. And oh, diamond dogs, that's pretty cool. And that was one of his albums, Diamond Dogs, just random letters that he'd chopped out of a newspaper. Or Tom Waits has got 2 radios he plays at the same time, and he listens to different stations and clashes between that genre and that genre, or that melody and that melody. They don't go together, but that makes them sort of cool. So it's artificially making, you know, these collisions happen. And my favorite one, the thing I want to end on, is the best-selling or the most covered song in musical history. So I don't know if in the chat, if you've got any ideas about the most covered song in the entirety of music, what it would be. It's not Happy Birthday. That is a good guess. And it's not Wonderwall of Queen. I thought it might be Stairway to Heaven. Lots of amazing suggestions. No, it's by the Beatles. So here we are. And it is Yesterday. Well done to Sandra. It is Yesterday. And I don't know if you know the story about it. Basically, Paul McCartney dreamt it. So he woke up one morning with this amazing melody going through his head, and he was desperate not to forget the melody. So he's sort of looking around, trying to think what I'm going to write this song about. There's nothing to write about. He was on tour, so people were having breakfast. There was nothing really going on. And he ended up writing the worst lyrics in musical history just to get himself started. So he starts going, scrambled eggs, oh my baby, how I love your legs, but not as much as scrambled eggs. Terrible singing from me, but terrible lyrics from him. And he kept him like that for the next 6 months until I think John Lennon said, if you don't stop playing that fucking scrambled eggs song, we're walking off stage. And so eventually did manage to sort of get the lyrics right, and he went back to them. And I think that's a lesson for us. Sometimes you just need a bit of luck to get yourself started, throw some stuff together, and then you can work out afterwards the sort of the logic and the rigor and the strategy behind your thinking. It doesn't always happen in, you know, that linear way where you think very methodologically through the problem, through the strategy into the work. Sometimes you can have the idea and then work out stuff afterwards, and that's fine too, as long as you do the work sometime. And so I want to finish by doing a little experiment here. If we were to brainstorm some ideas only using the lyrics to Yesterday, I need some ideas for a product category. So again, in the chat, maybe that's a good, seems like it's working, this thing. So in the chat, if you can suggest some product categories, I am going to choose one and then see if we can come up with some ideas for some strategies. So tools, Condoms, amazing. No. Amazing. Tools and condoms. I'm getting all sorts of semiotics about Australian psyche here. Aged care, cold sores here to stay. Cars. All right. Well, now, Smilka, can I get you to choose one? Because we've got lots of good examples here, but I'm going to get you to choose one if that's all right, so that I don't just pick the easy one.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think continence pants.
Amazing. Continence pants. Brilliant. Okay. Right. So just say we've got to come up with a bunch of ideas for some incontinence pants brand. And all we've got is alerts to yesterday. And we've only got like a couple of minutes to think of this stuff. So let's start with the first slide. So yesterday. All right. Well, that's like your heritage strategy, isn't it? So how long has this company been going? Let's provide a little bit of reassurance that we've been in the incontinence business for a little while. So that's one strategy. All my troubles seem so far away. That's probably quite a good, just the problem solution strategy in this category probably works really well. We're taking your troubles away. Now it looks as if they're here to stay. Okay, well, that could be all about the long-term, aspects of this condition, or the fact that this, that you've got a longer-lasting effect from these particular incontinence pants. I believe in yesterday. That is the brand manifesto strategy, isn't it? That's like, what is the higher order thought that this thing, stands for? Maybe it's all about, reassurance or comfort, or, being yourself or something like that. So there's a kind of a manifesto sort of strategy. Suddenly. That's probably quite good. So it could be all for those sort of spontaneous moments when you get caught out. So it could be, unplanned life and, unexpected stuff going on in your life when you don't want to be caught short. I'm not half the man I used to be. That could be interesting, because that could be all about how it affects your view of yourself as a person, and how we've all changed in life, and maybe there's a kind of something all about our self-worth and kind of our self-esteem that we could sort of get into there. There's a shadow hanging over me. There's a shadow that again, that works really well, because it could be about worries or sort of the fears that we have when we're in that sort of category. This could work well. Why she had to go. Why she had to go, I don't know, she wouldn't say. So it could be like all the reasons that we have to go, and that we don't want to say, we don't want to talk about. So it's the kind of, could be the embarrassment kind of sort of territory that we sort of get into. I said something wrong. So that could be about, taboos, saying something wrong, or myths. Now I long for yesterday, longing, and longing for yesterday, and the sort of, the harking back to your perhaps life when you didn't need this product, but perhaps we're able to sort of show that you don't need to do that anymore. Final verse, you'll be glad to know. Yesterday, love was such an easy game to play. That's 3 strategies in one line. That's love. This is the brand I actually love. I don't just put up with and tolerate, and because they're medicinal, but actually love what they're, the difference they've made to my life. They're easy, so you don't have to worry about it. And maybe they're even playful. And there have been some brands in this category that have had a more fun attitude and have really succeeded because of it. Now I need a place to hide away. So again, there might be, that probably works quite well in this category. It could be all about the privacy and sort of discretion. And then the final line, which I think is probably what took Paul McCartney so long to write. So I'm going to have to get this right. He wrote the line that was the immortal words, basically the satisfaction strategy, that feeling that you get when you wear these incredible incontinence pants and you're going around thinking, my life is feeling so much better. Obviously, I'm being a moron here and coming with lots of stupid and perhaps overly trivial ways into this problem. But actually, probably within that, there's some all right ones in there out of the sort of 20 or so different strategies for this slightly obscure product category. There's probably some ideas that touch on some quite interesting and different themes that can get started. And then all we need to do afterwards, then we can sort of cut down the list and do the hard work afterwards, just like Paul McCartney did with his. He didn't stick around with eggs for more than 6 months. So we can go back afterwards, we can do the hard work, we can do the rigor. We can, find some interesting ways into this problem. But these lucky throwing this random stuff together has just perhaps taken us down some more interesting avenues that we might not otherwise have done. And I sort of think, what's the harm in that? We're all working too hard, I think, these days. Hard work is important, but it's not true to say that, there's no such thing as luck, and that the harder we work, the luckier we get, and that you just need to slog away at life. I think you do need to work hard, you do need to be talented, but you do need to have a little bit of luck and appreciate your luck as you go, and also have a bit of fun. So my advice to everybody is go luck yourselves. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh my God, that is so good. You're quick on your feet. I wonder how many times have you exercised that side of your brain?
I've never had in Connor's hand. That is an amazing suggestion, whoever that was.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I think that for me, the main thing that you said there, all of that was amazing. What really stood out for me was when you said humans are really rubbish at coming up with new ideas. And I love that. I'm going to use that as a quote, and kind of a reason to why, like, we need to have diversity, not in just the people we work with, but in the experiences that we have. So go out there, experience as much as possible, get involved in things that you wouldn't normally do. I think that's a really great takeaway lesson for me, at least, as well as, pick a random song, take the lines, and then make a strategy work to those lines. So that's pretty cool too. All right, we're going to look at some of the questions. Does anybody have any questions by any chance? Blanche says, we'll never hear yesterday quite the same again. Do I have any questions? Unless people are putting them in the chat, I'm not sure. They're not on the Q&A thing. I actually wanted to ask you about, aside from kind of going out there and being, immersing yourself in different things, you are one of the kind of most creative people out there, according to Business Insider. So I wanted to get your take on that. How can planners or marketers or creatives be more creative? What is it that you do? What's your secret sauce there?
Yikes. I think it is about it's being open-minded, isn't it, and not trying to follow formula, and thinking beyond our category. I feel like there's a difference between how do you win creative awards. I feel like a lot of creative awards at the moment are quite self-referential, like the people watch award shows and see, oh, that wins at Cannes, so I'm going to do work like that looks like other work that wins at Cannes. I feel like it's a little bit samey. Even like really, supposedly really good work can feel quite samey. But that's why I sort of encourage you all to think outside of our category in our world and look at other bits of, there's so much creativity in the world of, I don't know, music or fashion or TikTok culture or all sorts of other places that are not about advertising. It's probably a bad thing for someone who's got a book about advertising to encourage you, don't read them, but it's sort of true. Like, you should fill your life with other stuff, and then try and, I think so many of the great ideas are these water cooler moments, aren't they? Which we're obviously, it's harder to do in a virtual world, but where you have a conversation with someone who's not on your brief, and just get a completely different perspective on it, and that can often prove the breakthrough. So I encourage people to do that more often.
Yeah, awesome. We have a question from Fran Clayton, who says, random and rigor, in what order, or switch between?
I think you can switch between. Sometimes you do think very rigorously through. It really does happen in the kind of linear. You work your way through the problem, you get to a solution. But sometimes you sort of stumble on something, and then you work your way backwards from it, and that's fine as well. In the same way that Paul McCartney sort of had the eggs thing first and then worked out, and people kind of, people slag that off in our world. They sort of say that is like post-rationalization, don't they? It's like the worst thing a planner can be accused of. It's like, oh well, you just lucked out and you came up with the idea and then you worked back the strategy out of it. But I feel like that is all right. People say that that's not scientific, but that is how most scientific discoveries actually do happen. It's Archimedes in the bath, or it's Isaac Newton under the tree, or it's Alexander Fleming, with a sort of a petri dish that he notices on the windowsill. And like, people don't say, oh well, Isaac Newton was he was a bit jammy, he was a bit lucky. You know, other scientists don't say, well, he was a bit, you know, because we sort of know that you still got to, you didn't just stop there. So if you do stumble on something really interesting, you still have to do, in fact, if anything, you have to do more rigor afterwards if you just stumble on something, because then you've got to convince yourself, was that just a pure fluke, or is actually maybe there is something in that we should, you know, sort of pay more attention to. So I think we should get better at working both ways, you know, still keep on working in that sort of forwards way, but then sometimes you can work backwards as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly retrofitted a strategy to an amazing idea for sure.
Yeah. Like, why would you? It's sort of ridiculously self-defeating. Why would that would be the equivalent? And obviously, we don't do anything remotely as important as this. But you know, like a lot of scientists might discover something that, you know, they're exploring arthritis, and they discover something that could be used to prevent cancer. Yeah, I mean, I know we don't do anything remotely as important as that, but that would be the equivalent of them saying, "Oh well, we're not going to progress that or pursue that because we were supposed to be looking for something to do with arthritis." No, if you discover something that's even more, you know, sort of powerful and sort of compelling, you then work really hard to work out, was that just a fluke, or could it actually be helpful in this other area? And then you sort of pursue it and sort of explore it, I think.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, there's some questions coming through around creativity. And I think a lot of us are exposed to this experience of, you know, you sitting in a briefing and clients are impressed by the things that are happening around them, and they're like, yes, I want to go creative, and they say that, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily eventuate when the creative gets put on the table. How do you encourage? I mean, you've obviously, Lucky Generals are very well known for being a hugely creative agency and kind of pushing the boat out there. How do you make that happen? How do you ensure you get people on side, and even after potentially the ideas bought, you know, the execution carries through as bought in the first place?
Yeah, it's sort of it is difficult, that, because and it is easier once you've got a track record, because it's a slightly circular thing, isn't it? If you can point back to, don't worry, we've done this before over many years, it's obviously people trust you, sort of thing. So it's harder for people who are beginning in their careers, or for new agencies and stuff like that. If anything, I think it's sometimes doing the opposite of, you know, obviously, so we show that there's a lot of rigor behind stuff. However we've come up with the idea, whether it's forwards or backwards, you still have to show that there is rigor and we've tested it and we're being responsible. We're not just, you know, taking the piss, sort of thing. But then sometimes it's sort of, I find the trouble nowadays is less about making sure that you stick to what you've agreed, and sort of the opposite, because it's like, you know, sometimes there's a problem where if you've sold in brackets a strategy to, you know, if they've sold it into their bosses, and you've agreed the pre-prod or the pre-prod, and, you know, this is what we're supposed to be filming on the day and all that kind of stuff. If somebody deviates from that, people can say, oh, no, but this isn't what we put into research, or that's not how we, you know, that's not what I've told my boss we're going to do. And so that can be a problem, because that is, again, turning your nose up against, and if something is better, you should just follow what is better. If somebody on the day does something, if you're filming a TV commercial and you get a better response from doing something slightly different, then you should just, you know, pursue that, rather than start saying, well, that wasn't on the script, or that's a little bit off brief, or whatever. You probably want to make sure you've captured everything you did say you were going to do as well. So, you know, make sure that you've covered all your bases, but then have the conversation with people that say, look, this is a bit unexpected. It's not quite what we said we were going to do, but we've discovered this way of doing it. It's going to make it better. And we'd be foolish to just ignore that, because we should be, this is what I mean about, you need to embrace luck and see it as a good thing, rather than try and restrict it and keep the Lord out of the room. You know, I think we need to let him walk through the room.
Yeah. We do have a bunch of other questions, but we also have 5 minutes left. So what I want to do is I want to give away your book, basically. And here it is. I haven't opened it because I am terrified that I might be unlucky. Something might happen to it. So I'm like, I got it, and then I'm just going to pass it on like a good baton. So before we get to giving away that book, I did want to kind of echo the industry I'm in and the thing that we do to people, which is basically have a bit of a message for my captive audience, just basically by saying, I want to say thank you to the Ad Council for organising today's session and bringing you, Andy, here for us to share these amazing lessons with us and provoke some thoughts. I mean, apart from being a huge voice and resource for our industry in every sort of shape and form, the Advertising Council also helps upskill our people and also improve the effectiveness of what we do. So with that, I wanted to bring to your attention some of the kind of courses that are coming up. So there's the core strategic planning course, which is for people who are relatively sort of new to planning, or for marketers who are interested in learning how to think like a planner and write great briefs. There's the advanced strategic planning course, which is for people who are progressing kind of to director level and above. We've got experienced strategy and design, which is for whether you're account management or planning, brand manager, producer, kind of we're looking at digital and CX projects. And also Creme de la Creme, which is the 3-day IPA strategic planning residential course in Melbourne in September. That's going to be run by Ali Tilling, who's CSO at VML YNR, and also Fabio Veresti, CSO at the Monkeys. They are two fabulous people. They're going to bring on like a bunch of other fabulous people for this course. I am going to do my best to be there, and hopefully a bunch of you guys will too. So please go on the website at the Ad Council and register there. Now, let's do the book. How do you want to do this, Andy? How should we give it away?
Oh, yikes. I don't know if you, well, why don't we go to this? 7 is a lucky number. So what about, do we go to the 7th person who said something on the chat? Is that I think, not including any of us, obviously. Who's that going to be?
Quite a bit of scrolling.
A lot of scrolling.
Here we go. We've got Steve, Mark, Paul, Campbell, Danielle, Blanche, Natalie. I've got Natalie Scovron. Nat, are you still there? Yay, she says.
Hey.
She's here. Awesome, Natalie. This is going to be in your possession shortly, as soon as I work out where you live. So maybe we'll get in touch. We'll get in touch.
We'll work this out.
Yeah, we'll work this out. Also, everyone else, you can get your copy from Booktopia. You can get, a couple for your friends. The money's for a good cause. So yeah, go crazy. Thank you, everyone. We have got 2 minutes left to spare. I don't know if you have any parting words for us. It's been phenomenal. Really appreciate your time and everybody else's time and input and all the questions and all the chats and the drawings. And I'm going to leave it to Andy to see if there's parting words.
Just huge thanks for you for inviting me on here, Smilka, and also for Sarah for making sure that I don't mess up the tech too much. And just thanks for everyone for putting it together. It's been really fun, and good luck, everyone. Hopefully see you somewhere or other at some shape or form in the future. Cheers.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.